Herndon Town Herndon Town Council Public Session, November 12th, 2019.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'll call the meeting to order and ask that you please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Councilmember Baker will not be here this evening. I wanted to make sure everyone was aware that this is our last meeting before the Thanksgiving holiday, so our next meeting won't be until December, so I wanted to extend my personal wishes for a safe and wonderful holiday, Thanksgiving holiday with your friends and family. And speaking of upcoming meetings, there is a special Joint Town Council HPRB work session, long awaited. It's scheduled to review and discuss the draft Heritage Preservation Overlay District Guidelines and Resource Guide that we've been working on with a consultant for what seems like a decade. It's been developed. It's going to be developed and presented by the project consultants to town staff, and we wanted to have a meeting where the HPRB and the town council both saw this together for the first time. That will be held Monday, December 2nd, right here in this room at 7 p.m., and HCTV will broadcast that if you're unable to attend. We have two sets of minutes up for approval this evening. Is there a motion to approve the October 17th special work session minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on the motion. This was the special work session on affordable housing. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, that motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the October 22nd public hearing minutes?
Second.
Discussion on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed, that motion carries. We have one presentation this evening to recognize, as we do annually, Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, and I will recognize Councilmember McKenna to read the proclamation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A Town of Herndon proclamation recognizing Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, December 7th, 2019. Each year, Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day is designated throughout the United States to remember and honor all those who died and were injured in the attack that occurred at Pearl Harbor near Honolulu, Hawaii, just before 8 a.m. on December 7th, 1941. In this attack, more than 2,400 American military personnel were killed and more than 1,200 were wounded. The attack on Pearl Harbor destroyed nearly 20 American naval vessels, including 8 battleships and almost 200 airplanes. December 7, 1941 was a date that would, quote, live in infamy, as President Franklin Delano Roosevelt told an anxious nation after the attack. On December 8, 1941, Congress approved President Roosevelt's declaration of war on Japan. 3 days later, Japanese allies Germany and Italy declared war against the United States, and Congress reciprocated. Therefore, the mayor and town council of the town of Herndon, Virginia, proclaimed December 7, 2019 as Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day in the town of Herndon, call on all citizens to honor this day, which marks the 78th anniversary of the attack on the United States Armed Forces at Pearl Harbor, pay tribute with the appropriate observances and activities, and express unending appreciation for the selfless sacrifices of those who served, fought, and lost their lives during this war. Further, the mayor and town council of the town of Herndon, Virginia, proclaim that the town shall annually observe the 7th of December as Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. Salute World War II veterans along with all those brave individuals who have served or continue to serve our armed forces, and thank them for their courage and dedication to this country. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Our comments from council, Mr. McKenna.
I'd just like to thank the town and town council for providing this proclamation. This one hits home for me personally because I lost, my father lost 2 brothers in World War II, 2 people I never met. And their sacrifice, in fact, where I came from, a town called Dunellen, is called the Dunellen Destroyers. That's our mascot. It's kind of ironic that Herndon, the USS Herndon, fought in the Battle of D-Day. That was a destroyer as well. And the reason why we're called the destroyers is because Dunellen lost an inordinate amount of their sons and daughters. Close to 11% of the population was killed in World War II. And this is just a reminder that we have to hold dear the freedoms that we have and the sacrifices people make. And especially with all the things that are going on in the news and the pettiness and politics, to realize that they laid the ultimate sacrifice because freedom is important, freedom of speech, freedom to express oneself, and freedom to be who you are things that I know that my family held dearly, and I know that this is an important day, and I just want to thank each and every one of you who serves in the military and for the American Legion for being here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Other comments from council? Madam Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When my dad was in high school, they were drafting everyone for World War II, and so he wanted to join the Navy, and his older brother wanted to join the Air Force. So both of them graduated a year early so they could join. But right after my dad got in, they sent him to Hawaii. But now this is at the end of the war, not the beginning. And he spent probably 6 months there, and he always talked about that was the best hand he ever got. It lasted for at least 3 years. But then the war ended, and he was one of the last in, first out. They were just trying to get the ranks down. But I attended Frying Pan Park for a bluegrass concert Sunday evening. And everybody was, you could tell, everybody was getting ready for yesterday, wearing their red, white, and blue for Veterans Day. And we had my neighbor, Bob Miller, so if you're watching Bob, who's 92, so he got a standing ovation as an individual that had served during World War II. So just wanted to throw that out, and thank you, Bob, for all you did. Thank you.
Thank you. I concur with my colleagues, and yesterday we held our annual Veterans Day observance out on the town green, and it was wonderful to be there. And I just want to reiterate that the town of Herndon values our veterans, and we thank you for your service, and we will continue to honor you at every opportunity that we have. I would like to invite forward our American Legion is here well represented this evening, and I didn't know if Dave Womack or if someone else wanted to come forward and say a few words, and then we'll invite you down for the presentation. Come on down. Nice to see you. 2 days in a row.
Yes, ma'am. So good to see everybody. First of all, before we leave yesterday's activities, great ceremony, so much appreciation from our post for the support you all give. A little building on that. As soon as we left that, a couple of us went to a local assisted living facility and did a miniature Veterans Day ceremony inside there because they couldn't get out. Probably the highlight of the afternoon was they had interviewed them all, and they had taken a picture of them, and they had created a PowerPoint slide, but they grouped them all by service. So they had the Army guys, and then they had the Marines and all. Every time a new song came on from the halls of Montezuma, you'd hear a whoop or a yell, and it sounded like a bunch of high school boys.
Right.
So it was so good to hear them do that. But we are here today to also celebrate, remember, Pearl Harbor Day, Remembrance Day. I was doing some research on this, and in 1987, Ronald Reagan, at the time president, signed a joint Senate Resolution 105 that called for December 7th of 1987 to be, obviously, National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. As mentioned, 2,400 were killed, about 1,200 were wounded. And from that, we, quote, summoned a great national effort in military strength and industrial activities for 3.5 years. And that truly was a watershed moment, as most historians will agree, that we were on the sidelines until that moment. But after that, we were all in, and we were all in up to the hips. We were ready to go. And that's good to remember. It's good to remember our national character as we face these adversities. So pausing on a night such as tonight to remember that through a town proclamation is very, very good. And we, as the Post, support you on that. And thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate all that you do. So with that, I would like to invite down everyone that's here representing the American Legion and any of our audience members who have served in the military. We would welcome you forward for the proclamation, as well as all my colleagues on the dais. Yes, I know.
Exactly right.
I know. Hello, how are you?
There we go. I think you just aim it to that and hit the white spot when I get there. Let me see if I can scoot in here. Oh, yeah. You're not getting off that easy. I found a photographer.
Okay, we're all in. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Look over here.
Absolutely.
All right. That brings us to comments, the comments portion of the agenda. Mr. Town Manager, do you have anything for us this evening?
Nothing this evening, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. DeCall. Or I can come back to you.
You can come back to me.
Mr. Dagula. Didn't mean to catch you off guard. I apologize.
No worries. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And that was a very moving tribute, so thank you for reading that proclamation. I just wanted to remind everyone, I learned something that I probably should have known. And thank you, Vice Mayor Olem and Member Friedrichs, for reminding me. We're not in this thing alone. There's an entire community out there. We just tend to forget. I've had the pleasure or being blessed to recently be able to take care of my sister. And I hope she's watching because it's about her. With her condition, we needed some assistance. She has MS. She battles some cognitive issues, some physical issues. And right here in Herndon, there is the adult care facility, which, again, I completely forgot about until I was reminded. What an amazing facility we have here right in our town. It is, quite frankly, world class. The services, the activities, the physical therapy, just even the meals are healthy. I mean, just everything that one could need. And again, we're kind of blessed. We can kind of afford this, but I was so impressed that they have a complete scale of anyone that needs help for their family member. And they do it by income levels. And as I said, we're certainly blessed to be able to provide this for her. But for the folks that cannot, please, there is help out there. And I'll ask everyone here to help me lobby our new Board of Supervisors to keep that funded, because it is absolute one of the treasures that we have here in Herndon. So thank you.
Absolutely. Ms. Friedrichs.
So I very much enjoyed the remembrance that we did yesterday on the town green for the Veterans Day. And I believe, I just wanted to mention that tonight, I don't know if anyone at home is watching, but if you know somebody who is homeless or struggles, tonight is a night that people need to be taken care of because it's going to be very, very cold out. And the Embry-Recker Homeless Shelter has facilities for people who are homeless and need some place to avoid hypothermia. So I encourage you, if you know somebody or you see somebody, to give them this information because it could save their lives. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. McKenna.
First, I want to say, Mr. Dagula, I appreciate what you said there, because I know, just as a person dealing with some of those things, just the stress of aligning those services for somebody can be daunting and overwhelming. So I appreciate you saying that. I did want to just let the audience know that the 14th Annual Herndon Holiday Model Train Show is coming on December 14th and 15th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It'll be at the Herndon Municipal Center at 777 Lynn Street, at the Herndon Depot Museum, 717 Lynn Street, and the W&OD Caboose at 779 Lynn Street. We have the chair, Mr. Richard Downer, here, but I just want to let the audience know about that. That's all. Thank you.
And it's the one day of the year that the caboose is open to go inside, and it's so cool. If you haven't done that, you definitely should. Mr. DeCall. Sure. Certainly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to talk about one thing. Yesterday, I attended the Veterans Day Remembrance, and today we have Pearl Harbor Remembrance Proclamation, right? Somebody who came from another land, and my parents or my grandparents did not fight in World War II. And, somebody coming from another world, coming to this country and finding this kind of freedom is a blessing. And I'm definitely talking on behalf of millions of people who call this great, land called home. Yes, we came from another land, but we are equally fortunate and blessed to have the American forefathers who fought in this First World War, Second World War, in any other war, so that we could achieve the freedom we have today here. We could practice our freedom here today. That's why I always say to my family, my kids, my relatives, that freedom is never free. Somebody has always paid the price for it, and I'm forever grateful for that. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Oh, beautifully said. Thank you, sir. Madam Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Let's see, did I?
There you go.
Okay, there we go. So greetings, everyone. So we have had so many holidays lately. The Veterans Day Memorial Remembrance yesterday was super awesome because the weather was perfect. And I have been out there some years where, people show up, but we're popsicles by the time it's over. It's so cold. So yesterday was absolutely wonderful. And the Women's Club, again, made the refreshments, all the homemade cookies, which was a labor of love that those ladies do. Make sure if you have pets, make sure you bring them in tonight because it's cold for the pets too. So I know a lot of places are opening up for pets because they can't make it in this cold weather. Halloween, we thought was going to be a bust. Normally, we have about 400 kids, but we were threatening with tornadoes. We ended up having about 250. So I still have candy. I brought some outside. Please take it home with you. I'm taking it everywhere I go. And also, happy Thanksgiving to all of you that celebrate Thanksgiving. And I'm looking forward to seeing my youngest son. I haven't seen him in a while. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this is the portion of the agenda where you can make comments from the audience. You have up to 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record. When the red light comes on, please try to wrap up. This is the opportunity to speak on any item that is not listed as one of our public hearing items. So it can be anything that's on your mind to include our general and consent agenda items. Again, you have up to 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record. Who would like to come forward? Yes, sir.
My name is Alexander Burke. I live at 910 George's Place, apartment 304 in Herndon at the Harbor House there too. The question I have here, I went to the October 23rd meeting and talked to you people with the town councils in here. And we are planned to the town of Herndon are going to be planned to build 270 new apartment buildings. Is there a possibility that we will look into 10% of the population would be for lower income or middle income people? And I feel very strongly that senior people should have a chance to live there. I'm talking about senior living like on their own. They're tall. And I would find that be very, very extremely important there too. Okay, Herndon does not have a housing department. The Grainsville supervisor of Fairfax County, is it possibility of the town council and the mayor to bring in Fairfax County, like the housing authority, to make it work properly, to string up people, what people need to do. And plus, it'd be a great opportunity for the town council to learn or two. And I feel one thing very, very strongly in here, to definitely have Cornerstone, and like as in Herndon there too, would be a very great aid because it knows the people of Herndon there too, which would be a great benefit. One of the greatest benefits they're told, yes, I am a senior patient and a baby boomer. And there's many older people, I'll be honest with you too, can't take care of themselves there too. Like they can't take upkeep up their home there too. Their porch is caving in. It's a blight in there too. This is a beneficial for the people of Herndon and Fairfax County, where the housing people can go out and talk to these people to get them into apartment place to live so they can sell their property. Everybody wins. The town of Herndon, Fairfax County is a great, great beneficial. And I hope the town council and the mayor of leadership. Mayor Russ, 20 years ago, was the mayor of Herndon. At Herndon Court Apartments on Center Street, 3 blocks from here. Tram and Crow put in it was like 64 units. And the town of Herndon was like over 200 units were built there too. And the
Sir, can you
people
try to
of
wrap up,
town of
please?
Herndon benefit very, very well. And was a very good project. Herndon Court was a slums. It was not a Section 8. It was a slums, and it served to be knocked on 20 years ago. I would
Sir,
very
can you
much
try to
like
wrap
to
up,
see
please?
the leadership of our mayor and our town council to look into this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak on any item that's not a public hearing item? Yes, sir, followed by Mr. Downer. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mayor, Town Council. My name's Rob Morris, and I live at 701 Nash Street, about 3 blocks up from the center of town here. And first off, I'd just like to thank you guys. I came earlier in the year and sometime around as we were recognizing military as well and during Memorial Weekend. And I felt kind of bad at the time, raining on everyone's parade, but we did have an issue with speeding on Spring Street, and I just wanted to thank you. I think the day after I spoke on a couple of items that maybe need to be improved on, there was a speeding trailer that was put in, and now it's a solar-powered speed limit sign that we see all over town. And they work great, they're efficient, and from where we sit and where we live on the corner, we can see people slowing down all the time.
It's very
So
effective.
It does work, and it was a great start, so I really appreciate that. Tonight, basically, I'm here to follow up with sort of a concern we have with Spring and Nash Street, which we have some other neighbors here tonight as well. We do not have a crosswalk that you see pretty much in every other part of town. I've noticed the crosswalks have been there for a while, and they work well. With the expansion of the amount of cars that are coming down the last few years, and where we're at, we have 2 or 3 other adjacent communities that all share our street to come out and walk into town, ride their bikes into town, walk their dogs. So it's heavily traveled. We've been there 25 years, and over time we've seen more and more people, which is great, out enjoying the town. You know, the brand of the town is come on down, enjoy the restaurants, retail. So it's great because people are walking more to go down and do that. I just feel to keep up with sort of public safety and quality of life in that little intersection, I think we need a basic crosswalk, and again, whatever channels you guys would have to go through to do that, we'd greatly appreciate that. So, you know, I've had a couple of mishaps in the last month in other sections, but I think for our little street right there, everybody really appreciate it. So I appreciate you looking into that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Downer.
I just had the occasion to meet the new Director of Public Works, and I'm sure I'll get to know him a lot better as we go along. My name is Richard Downer. I live at 815 Herndon Station Square, which is literally across the street from us, and with my wife, Linda. We're in apartment 308. The paving that was done downtown was extremely professional, and I really want to compliment I knew it was, you never knew which way to go for sure, but it really was done properly. The striping was fantastic. I know they took occasion to change a few turns and things like that, but it really looks outstanding. And I don't know who decided to put the railroad ties on the street, at least the hike and bike trail. I haven't gone around to see if it's on every other crossing.
It's on several of them,
Is
yes.
it?
Yeah.
But that's brilliant. Who will take credit for that? Or
I don't know.
Mayor, the mayor.
It was him.
Okay. Well, anyway, it does reflect back on our railroad history and
Yeah.
lets them know that it was trails to
Rails to trails. Yeah.
trails thing. I thought I would also let you know the figures for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. Now, I realize that doesn't have anything to do with it, with you all, and we haven't asked for any funds from the town. The mayor's daughter went through this from beginning to end, and she's the only one that I know of that's literally finished it all.
Yeah, someone registered her on the day she was born.
Yes.
Guess who?
Had some help with that.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've gotten 86,808 in the Herndon 70 zip code. And a total of, now we didn't start this until that was in 2005. We started the whole Herndon zip code and the south part of town in 2012. And that's 26,724, the building. So the total that we have put out, our Rotary Club has put out for the benefit of all the citizens, all the children in this area, is 115,608. And that's just fantastic. Now, on a different subject entirely, Mr. McKenna neglected to say that he's agreed to be the co-chairman this year, and hopefully I have plans for him.
Okay.
beyond that.
Look out.
I've got copies of this for each of you, if I give them to the town clerk. And
Okay, Mr. Downer, can you try to wrap up, please?
yeah,
It flies by.
that's going to be an interesting day that day when we get to where we're doing the winter market and the train show. But we think we've got it all worked out, so one won't get in front of the other. But anyway, the model train show is really, some people just drop their kids off and come back later because they don't know how long they'll take. But anyway, it's a good family event, and the Chamber of Commerce, the Herndon Chamber of Commerce, is one that provides the funds for that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I see an audience member that's excited about the train show out there. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak? Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
Wow, how accommodating. That's great.
Told you we liked him to move furniture.
Okay, oops. Okay,
It's on.
I think it's got, okay,
We can hear you.
Cordelia Morgan. I live at 704 Nash Street here in Herndon, Virginia. I've lived here now 23 years, and I had to dash this off. My brains are still scrambled. I am coming to you to speak about the subject of pedestrian and accessibility and design in the town. And as I said, we've been here 24 years. I have multiple sclerosis. Diagnosis 85, but I'm not in the wheelchair because of that, so don't let your wife lose hope. But on October 24th, while crossing Grove Street, I was struck by an SUV. I was taken to Reston Hospital, and I was just released from Reston's own rehabilitation center on Saturday. And shout out to Reston Rehabilitation. They are the ones responsible for getting me to this point, and I am speaking for them too, because we've talked a lot about pedestrian safety and what seems to have been a scrambled memories of people and rules of the road. In walking through Herndon, it's perfect perimeter. I can go a certain distance. I can do farmer's market. I could go to Walgreens. I can go right in that area. But in that time, I've witnessed a lot of things. And I'm ashamed to say there's some things that I actually allowed to happen. And so bear with me. I'll try and keep with the time. But as you can see right now, reading is problematic. People will press the button for the walk sign, but they don't want to wait. They go ahead and cross. So pedestrians need education. But at intersections of Spring and Eldon at Jimmy's, and Van Buren and Eldon, invariably when I've gone up there, and it's a lot, there's a signal that is not working. It's either the button doesn't go in, or it goes in, but you don't see the walkman. The post office corner, that was going on a lot until suddenly you see numbers, 8765, and there's your chance. So it happens a lot, I'm sorry to say, in spite of all the wonderful work that the town crew's been doing in installing all this. It's, they're great. There should be some kind of periodic check that it's working, because I do see mothers don't want to wait. They grab their children, they run across. There's been a time where I literally had to hold my breath and pray mightily because nothing was working, and I had to cross. So that is, and it's not just a matter of the signals, it's a matter of education for the pedestrian. And at cross signals, there are the pedestrian walks, and this is where I got it. And there is a rule, no right turn on red when pedestrians present. And I am ashamed to say that I have actually let people get away with that. They goose it. They'll go in front because, well, she's still got space. Or they go and back because I've already passed that point. They've ignored the fact that has always been, at least when I was growing up in Virginia, if somebody's in that crosswalk, you stay put. But they don't. They'll goose it. At the cross signals, and I'm speaking for the therapists too, because they have to do this in their training, signals are not long enough. 20 seconds is the standard. And that's great. It's perfect when you've got two good legs. But when your speed is limited because you have a walking adapter, or you're just older, you are really holding your breath, because it's like being at a raceway. You hear them literally, the motors are gunning, the car's going like this, because they're looking at 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. And I talked to the therapist, and I said, well, what time's better? And she said 25 seconds at minimum.
So I see that the light is on, and I don't want to, I hate to cut you off because this is such an important issue, and we are grateful that you are able to even be here this evening. Would it be possible for us to follow up with you to hear in more detail the concerns you have? Because 3 minutes is not enough.
My neighbors are tired of hearing it.
And we do have
including her.
Right. So can we follow up with you and maybe schedule a meeting to hear more about the detail? I know Sheila knows where. Or maybe we can come to you.
Point of order. I have been harping on our intersection by Rob's house. So yes, keep talking.
Thank you.
And
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
With the right people right over there.
It's all good. I didn't even notice. I was enthralled with your story. Thank you. And can I ask the town clerk to make sure we follow up with that? Thank you. This week? Okay, we'll let her know. Okay, I'm sorry, we are way off schedule. Who else would like to come forward and speak? Yes, ma'am. And while you're coming down, I've been told that there is a pedestrian bicycle committee meeting, I'm sorry, that's this Thursday night at 7 o'clock, and they would love for you to attend. Yeah, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, members of the council, Ann Veda, 631 Oak Street. I hope you all had a good evening so far. I've spent mine applying plastic to the inside of my 120-year-old windows because the town will not allow me to have airtight, functional windows to keep out the cold. It's not just the pets and the homeless who are at risk of hypothermia. The process of installing plastic is ugly. The resulting appearance is even uglier and of questionable historic value. But the real reason why I came out on this cold evening is to thank you for the upcoming Heritage Guideline rewrite, and I hope that you'll be aggressive in publicizing that upcoming joint meeting of the HPRB and the Town Council. To thank you and encourage you to expand the scope to include reevaluating the structures to which the guidelines apply, and to ask you to recognize the few town realtors who feature heritage responsibilities to their prospective buyers. Such honest practices would have protected me from the unfortunate situation I find myself. I understand that there's approximately 200 heritage structures. Of the 3 heritage structures on Florence Place, 66 are failed. 66%, I'm sorry, 66%, so 2 out of 3 are failed. That means completely unviable under the guidelines and possibly not salvageable under any circumstances. As you look to the guidelines, please consider exactly what your goal is. Is it to save individual components like roofs and windows, or is it to save the entire structure? I hold the Heritage Guidelines responsible for the over 2-year vacancy and failure to sell of the Orr property. The Orr and Emery structures on Florence Place are victims of strict guideline enforcement of roof and other components at the expense of preserving the whole. I fear the guidelines put my own home on the same trajectory. As I head home to shiver in my heritage structure, I again encourage you to use the occasion of the guideline rewrite as an opportunity to verify their appropriateness to each structure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak on any item that's not listed as a public hearing item? Anyone else? Okay. Thank you all. We have several public hearings this evening. The first one is Ordinance 19039 to grant a 10-year telecommunications franchise to AT&T Communications of Virginia. I'll open the public hearing and announce that the town has received 1 bid from AT&T Communications of Virginia, which has been entered into the record and is on file in the town clerk's office. I will recognize Tammy Chastain, who's our Deputy Director of Public Works, for the staff report and ask if we have received additional bids.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so hearing none, then I will close the bidding process and we're ready for the staff report.
All right. Good evening. The previous agreement with AT&T Communications of Virginia expired. This will provide for a new 10-year agreement for the franchise. There are no changes to their existing infrastructure. This is simply just a new agreement for their current infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Chastain? Ms. Friedrichs, followed by the Vice Mayor.
Did we advertise this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So just so everyone knows, there's no roads being blocked off.
No.
It's just,
No construction.
we're just updating a contract.
Yes, ma'am.
Just like new, renting an apartment and you've decided to stay on. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Are there any more questions for Ms. Chastain? Okay, thank you. So as stated, this is a public hearing, so I will call for comments from the audience, and if the applicant or applicant's agent is here and would like to speak, we would welcome you forward, along with anyone else. Is there anyone that would like to come forward? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and move to council level for discussion and action, and this will require a roll call vote. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of 19G-68.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve made by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Mr. Del Aguila.
Amend.
Correction.
Yeah.
19-0-39.
Did you say the wrong number?
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying. We knew what you meant. Okay. All right, so
I got you.
still where we thought we were. Okay, thank you. Is there discussion on the motion from anyone? No. Okay. Then I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Olem?
Yes.
Councilmember Del Aguila?
Yes.
Councilmember DeCall?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedrichs?
Yes.
Councilmember McKenna?
Yes.
And Mayor Merkel?
Yes, that motion carries. Next up is ordinance 19040 to grant a 10-year telecommunications franchise to Teleport Communications of America, LLC. Same process. We'll open the public hearing and announce we have received one bid from Teleport Communications of America, LLC, which has been entered into the record. Have we received additional bids on this one, Ms. Chastain?
No, ma'am.
Shocking. So I will close the bidding process, and we will hear the staff report from Ms. Chastain.
Okay, very similar to the last one, the franchise agreement expired, and this is for a new 10-year franchise agreement with Teleport Communications America. No changes to their infrastructure either, so.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Chastain? No? Ms. Friedrichs?
Will we be able to teleport?
That'll be the next renewal. Okay. Any questions? Right. I wish, that'd be cool. That'd put us on the map. So this is public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and speak on this item? Yes, sir.
I would prefer to do it from here if we could.
Certainly.
Why don't you teleport up?
No.
5G, the town is actively involved in installing that type of thing. Will both these installations deal with 5G?
I can comment on that as the agent.
Okay. Would you come forward to the microphone? The question was raised, will these support 5G? And so you are here representing the current bid. Okay, thank you.
My name is Ben Fabino with KCI Technologies, acting as an agent for AT&T Communications, and I'm also an affiliate agent with Teleport Communications. They're very closely related, if not the same thing, just different branches. So this is the long-haul network. AT&T Communications of Virginia LLC is their long-distance communication line. So it doesn't really handle 5G capacity. What it is the next step after 5G when your cell phones or internet traffic, it's taking you the longer distance. Your Teleport Communications is local carrier. It is still not cell phone towers. But they do connect to cell phone towers. So it's not their department, but they are closer, one step closer to that 5G communication. So both of these companies don't handle cell phone capacity, but they're in the network that completes phone calls, completes internet traffic. So it's the next step after cell phone capacity.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak on this item? You have up to 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and move to council level for discussion and action once again. Mr. McKenna.
Madam Mayor, I move for approval of ordinance 19-0-49.
Second.
You got to be faster, Madam Vice Mayor. We have a motion to approve made by Mr. McKenna and seconded by Mr. DeCall. Is there a discussion on the motion? No. Okay, so seeing none, I will ask the clerk to call the question, and once again, the clerk will call the roll for us.
Vice Mayor Olem?
Yes.
Councilmember Del Aguila?
Yes.
Councilmember DeCall?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedrichs?
Yes.
Councilmember McKenna?
Yes.
Mayor Merkel?
Yes, and that motion carries. Thank you for coming this evening. Our next ordinance is 19041 to approve a lease of space to the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors in the town's building at 397 Herndon Parkway. I will open the public hearing and recognize our town attorney, Lisa Yates, for the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This evening, I'm bringing to you a proposed lease between the town and the Board of Supervisors for space in the building that we own at 397 Herndon Parkway. This lease is necessitated by the fact that the current space that Supervisor Faust's office occupies in our town hall building is needed to house a new town employee, the risk manager, who will be coming on board at the beginning of December. Currently, Supervisor Faust's assistant, Jenny Phipps, has her office there, and would be very sad to see her leave. But Supervisor Faust and as well as Ms. Phipps have been advised and consented to the new lease and the new space. The terms are the same as for the town hall space. The rent would be $1 per lease term, which is consistent with all other governmental and nonprofit spaces that are leased in town buildings, and with similar leases on town property for office space. It's a one-year lease, and it would go in effect essentially immediately. Any questions?
Thank you. Are there questions for Ms. Yates on the lease? Anyone? No? Okay. Thank you very much. So this is a public hearing, so I'll call for comments from the audience. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and speak on this item? No one? Okay, thank you. Then I will close the public hearing and move to council level for discussion and action. Madam Vice Mayor.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of 19-0-41.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve made by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Mr. McKenna. A discussion on the motion.
Yeah, I just have a couple of comments. I think this is an awesome opportunity to have our elected officials in one place, and also it's ADA. Anyone can go into those buildings. We still have one office left in our old town hall, and I know there's discussion about that, but just being able to have the public easily get in there, as we saw one of our neighbors come in a wheelchair. Thank goodness this building is totally ADA. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? Anyone? Yes, sir.
I think it's a great idea as well. And I just want to remind everyone the discussion we had in the work session that we could possibly look at, rather than just doing a $1 fee, that we actually do a market analysis, what that going rate is, and then do an in-kind contribution. So I'd like council to certainly pick that up and pursue that going forward, if at all possible. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I followed up with the town manager after our meeting, and that going forward, we're going to look at that. There wasn't time to make such a substantive change this time, but it does definitely make sense. Appreciate you bringing that up. Is there anybody else who would like to comment on this item? All right. Well, with that, I will call the question. Those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed? And that motion carries. This brings us to our general items. The first one is Resolution 19G68 to authorize project administration agreements between the Town of Herndon and Fairfax County for administration of the Herndon Metro Rail Station Access Management Study Projects, better known as HAMSAMS, the world's most interesting acronym. And I believe, do I need to recognize Bill Ashton on this? I think we have an update.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
Unfortunately, as of 5:30 tonight, we still have not received the final draft from the county on this. So I'm going to respectfully ask for you to continue it until your next meeting, where we hopefully will shake that loose from the county and we'll be able to entertain it properly.
Hard to approve something we don't have.
We did receive a draft of that, returned it with comments, and had not gotten anything back. So that's why it's been a little bit more than 3 weeks. Okay. This would be, since it's been, it's not a public hearing, so we don't need to open any public hearing or anything. It's just asking you continue it to the next meeting.
Okay, which would be a date certain of December 10th.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
yes.
Are there any timelines associated with this, or are we okay with that?
None that we're aware of.
Well, John, do you want to answer that one for me, please? Thanks.
The translation is, are we going to lose any money because of this? No.
The current schedule is that it's supposed to be put before the Board of Supervisors on the 3rd of December. So,
fair enough.
I'm not sure.
So it looks like they're going to need to delay that as well, since we haven't received it.
So it'll be for our next public meetings, won't have to worry about special session or anything like that.
No.
Okay.
The Date certain of December 10th. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for the town manager or Mr. Irish? Okay, then I will is this a motion to continue or to defer? Continue. Okay, I would entertain a motion to continue to a date certain of December 10th.
So moved. Second.
So Sheila, Sydney. Discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed. So that motion carries unanimously, and we will reconvene on that topic on December 10th. Next up, everybody's favorite topic, Ordinance 19042, to amend Chapter 66, Streets, Sidewalks, and Certain Other Places. I love that, certain other places. To add Article 5, Shared Mobility Devices, otherwise popularly known as scooters for the most part. I'll recognize Lisa Yates, our town attorney, for the staff report, and she'll help us understand why this is coming up so quickly on our agenda.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. There were changes that were made to the state law back in early 2019 by the General Assembly. The General Assembly adopted some comprehensive legislation that was regulating many devices, including e-scooters as well as bicycles, skateboards, and mopeds. Included in the comprehensive legislation were new safety and operational rules that became effective July 1st of this year, which included a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, head and tail lights on vehicles like e-scooters, and the requirement that 14-year-olds or younger need parental supervision to operate these types of devices. Most importantly, though, and why we're here today, is that new authority was granted to localities to regulate certain devices by a new code section, 46.2.13.15. These devices include bicycles, motorized skateboards, and e-scooters, electric scooters. The changes to the state law and the authority to regulate gave localities express authority to either establish pilot programs and or regulate scooters and these other devices by ordinance and require a license to operate. So what is the rush to enact legislation at the local level at this point? Well, included in that legislation that was enacted by the General Assembly, 46.2.13.15, was a requirement that localities must enact licensing requirements or regulations prior to January 1st, 2020, or the devices, the 4 devices that we just discussed, will be permitted to operate in the locality pursuant to state law. Which has very limited regulation on those vehicles.
So if I may, so if we do not pass an ordinance by December 31st, we lose the opportunity to do so, and
Correct.
we default to state
Correct.
law. Okay, thank you.
Correct. And correct. So staff has drafted a proposed ordinance that defines shared mobility device as the 4 devices that are named in the statute in the General Assembly adopted legislation. It requires that the town council issue a franchise or license agreement to operate in the rights of way before a permit to operate can even be considered. As you know, the town owns its streets and its rights of way. The ordinance tasks the town manager or his designee with developing permit operational standards, and most importantly, this ordinance preserves the town's authority to regulate these devices by being enacted prior to the January 1st, 2020 deadline. Potential challenges. There are still remaining at this point operational issues, including do you allow these types of devices to operate on the streets? Do you allow them to operate on the sidewalks? What do you do about parking? Is there a speed limit? Another challenge is balancing the desire of the public for this type of transportation with the potential for accidents and personal injury, property damage as well. One of the major and one challenge that will be initially quite great is enforcement demands, increased enforcement demands that the town will have to stand up individuals to enforce these regulations that the council adopts. It also requires unknown resources at this point. While other jurisdictions have been experiencing an influx of scooters and other devices for some time now, Herndon has not, and we have not had an opportunity to gauge exactly what sort of resources and the cost of those resources that are going to be needed. So those are challenges with the enactment of these regulations and the coming of these devices. So the issues to be decided, as I said, would be whether to allow devices to operate on sidewalks. If they do operate on sidewalks, what's the speed limit? To require geofencing, which is a control that is provided by the actual companies that regulate these devices. It can create no-go zones where the device doesn't operate in certain areas. Slow-go zones, like coming to certain congested areas. Also, no parking zones where you cannot leave a device in that area. Generally, speed limits. Again, devices can be programmed to not go over a certain speed, period, or not go over a certain speed in a certain area. Operating hours. Are these devices to be operated 24 hours a day, only during daylight hours, etc.? And also, do we require educational or safety messages on the app that you need to get to operate these vehicles? And many other decisions as well. So just a quick little overview of how e-scooters work. They're powered by an electric motor. The e-scooters are owned by a company and they're rented to individuals. Dockless scooters can be parked anywhere permitted by the locality and private property owners. We certainly cannot control what people do on their private property, whether they allow these or not, but the private property owners can. Scooters are periodically picked up, recharged, and redistributed by the company that owns them, and they can go up to 20 miles an hour, and that is the speed limit that the current state code puts on those devices. A company places a number of scooters within a jurisdiction. They call it a drop, and they do just appear. Bird drops happen all the time. A rider downloads the company's app and agrees to their terms and conditions. The rider selects any available scooter that is in their area, scans it, and pays the fee to ride. Then they can ride. Without any regulations, there are no helmets that are necessary or required. There are no training that's required. It's simply as limited as swiping your credit card and going. E-scooters on town property and rights-of-way. Again, the town owns streets, public rights-of-way. The town controls the public rights-of-way. Scooter companies need permission to park scooters in public rights-of-way. If a scooter company deploys scooters, drops scooters, without permission, the town can impound the scooters and charge a fee just for simply being in our rights-of-way without authority. On non-town property or privately owned property, property owners can decide whether and where to allow the scooter to park, and without permission, a parked scooter could be removed by the property owner. So the staff recommendation is, at this point, to enact the draft ordinance requiring a franchise or license granted by the town council, and to permit the companies to operate in town to meet the January 1st, 2020 deadline. Later, the staff is recommending that time be given to gather more information, to inform further regulation, and amend this ordinance if necessary. And I would say it is anticipated that this ordinance would be amended at least once, if not more, depending on how this new industry does in the town. So I'm happy to take any questions at this point.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Yates, Mr. DeCall and Mr. DeLaguila.
Sure, thank you. Very thorough presentation. My question is, so what we are trying to do here is enact a very high level ordinance, and then we have an opportunity to gather more details in future, so we don't miss that opportunity if we do it before January 1st, right?
Yes, the proposed ordinance is the framework, essentially, and it can certainly operate with an applicant at this time, but we would be developing the further necessary regulations as we go. But
got it. And the current license agreement, operational standards, giving towns authority, and geofencing, operational hours, none of those are mentioned in the state law yet.
None of them are mentioned in the state law, and I don't anticipate that they will be. Each
Okay.
locality adopts their own standards based upon their own community standards.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeLaguila.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just so I'm clear, this ordinance, we're using the terms e-scooters and shared mobility devices as defined on slide 3 interchangeably, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so skateboards, e-skateboards that
Correct.
don't
It's-
have headlights or taillights. I mean,
Correct. Well, there is legislation that that requires those things, and we can require those things as part of our ordinance as well.
Well, I was just wanted to make sure we're covering all those devices.
Yeah, correct.
And the second thing is, what's our alignment with like the bike path that's not necessarily ours, right? And,
It is not ours, and it is owned by the Northern Virginia Park Authority. We do have several means of access to the trail, and we can regulate what is ours.
Right. So once they come off the bike path, then our ordinance applies.
Correct.
But they could buzz through and...
I do not know whether the Park Authority has any plans to regulate any further than what they already do regulate on the trail.
Thank you. Other questions for Ms. Yates? Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
That was one of you've touched on my question. Has staff talked with the Park Authority about, my understanding is you're not even allowed to be, Joe individual that has an electric bike, you're not supposed to be using that on the WNOD trail in the motorized mode. You can ride it in the pedal mode, and if they're not allowing that,
well, we would not, to tell you what exactly are their regulations at this point, I would not be able to, I'd have to look them up.
Right.
But what we are proposing would be consistent with the surrounding counties, especially Fairfax County, who is adopting their ordinance at their December meeting, I believe. And it may be that there are regulations on the trail that operators are not, abiding by.
The other question is, are we planning to let them operate the motorized on our sidewalks? Because to me, we just saw what happened to my neighbor. I mean, she's just walking in a crosswalk with a walker, and I can't imagine if you're on our little sidewalks where I live off of Spring Street, there's no way someone can go around you, and if you're on a walker, you're toast, or if you're not too steady on your feet.
That would be one of the items that would be up to the discretion of council to decide and include in any ordinance. It would certainly be something that you could include in a license agreement. And definitely it is something that we anticipate that council would consider for any amendments to this particular ordinance.
Yes.
One other thing is, just because these, especially the scooters, are used a lot more frequently than if you go buy one, it's probably going to last you a good solid 2 years. But if it's being constantly rented by different individuals, I would like us going forward as we are tweaking things to keep in mind, I think part of it should be that it has to be maintained. There need to be safety inspections, not just pick them up and wipe them off and charge them, but also to do a safety inspection, because sometimes the brakes malfunction, the handles have been known to just fall off, and it's just a hazard out there for people that don't travel a lot.
And that is, thankfully, we are not new to the game here. We are benefiting from a couple of years' experience from our surrounding jurisdictions as well as across the nation. And again, that is why the recommendation is in the ordinance to task the town manager or his designee to study all these items, gather all the information, which we already have a lot of, and make recommendations to council about what ought to be included in the regulations.
And I will say that I have noticed quite a few individuals in town purchasing their own, from the skateboards to the scooters and so forth. So I know people are going to use them, and I think it's great that we get ahead of this. And
Are there any
pass
more
this.
questions
Thank
for
you.
the town attorney? Ms. Friedrichs?
So basically, what you're asking us today is to enact to give you permission to
To enact the ordinance,
to
as
enact
sort of a
the
placeholder.
ordinance as a placeholder, and discuss the higher ramifications later.
Right. It does actually operate. It's not just a placeholder. It does actually operate. The ordinance does.
But
yes.
but you agree that
More is
more
needed.
needs to be done, and I wonder why we aren't tasking the PBAC committee with. Some
they'll
of
definitely
this.
be and definitely get
Okay.
to see this.
All right. So all you want us to do right now is enact this.
I think I would urge you to do so that we will have something in place by January 1st.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions for Ms. Yates? Okay. So this is a journal item. So if there are no further questions, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I motion approval of 19042.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve made by Mr. DeLaguila, seconded by Mr. McKenna. Discussion on the motion.
Just, we need to get this in place.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is very important because we don't want to lose any authority that we would give back to the state because the state doesn't recognize how, the density of 4.2 square miles of endless possibilities, as I call this place. But we need to, and the other thing is, as Ms. Yates said, we have a lot to look at. We can look at our neighbors and see what they've done. I do know at the Youth Advisory Council, this was actually a very hot topic, and they thought that 20 miles per hour was too fast. They thought that being on sidewalks was not good. So those are, obviously those are things we can definitely amend, but we need to put something in place so that Richmond can't take away what we can definitely do ourselves.
Thank you. Further discussion? Yes, ma'am. Anybody else?
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues, but I also wanted to make one comment. There was an individual raising their hands, and because this is a general item and not a public hearing, that's why we did not call on anyone out in the audience. And normally you would speak on these items at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? No, I agree with our colleagues. I'm glad that we are getting this in place, and I think there's an opportunity also for the Northern Virginia Regional Commission to, I'm sure, look at this and see what's happening regionally, and try to have as cohesive a policy as possible so that it's not confusing for our residents. And I'm glad that PBAC's going to be on it. So we're going to have to add another acronym, another letter to the acronym.
We'll come up with something.
All right. So we have a motion to approve made by Mr. Del Aguila and seconded by Mr. McKenna. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed. Thank you. Our final general item is Resolution 19G69 to establish the Town of Herndon's 2020 legislative program. And I will once again recognize our town attorney for the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I bring to you this evening the 2020 General Assembly legislative program, as you said. There was one very important action item in the recommended program, and that is amendment of the Code of Virginia to permit the collection of town real estate taxes by the both delinquent and non-delinquent by Fairfax County. Loudoun County has done this by a specific amendment to the state code. We would like to do the same and have the opportunity to have the county collect our taxes in the future. We have been in contact with the county Director of Tax Administration, and they are willing to do this if council does adopt this legislative program and ask the General Assembly to make the change. As you see in your draft program, it is simply adding Fairfax County to the list, right now consisting only of Loudoun County. So it would be Loudoun County and Fairfax County that are permitted through an agreement, an MOU, with the county, allowing them to provide collections for any town located partially or wholly within the county. And we have alternatives of that legislation that we're asking the General Assembly to adopt. Also included in your legislative program are positions and informational items that you have indicated to me that you feel very strongly with and would like to see specifically included therein. One that was added after the last work session was the item that was identified by Councilwoman Friedrichs regarding blight, and that has been added. The rest was, the remaining items were you considered and discussed at the work session. So we would ask that you recommend, that you approve the recommended resolution establishing the Town of Herndon's legislative program so that this program can be taken to our legislators and so that we can request their support for these items. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions for the town attorney? Ms. Friedrichs, followed by Mr. DeCall.
I believe the mayor had made reference at our work session to the plastic bag recommendation, and I don't see it in there. I missed it.
If you look at page 3, it is under local option regulation of disposable plastic bags.
Ah, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah, I think something's out of order because it looks like that's page 4, but yes, it is in there. So something's funky with Granicus, but it is in there. I see why you didn't see it. Okay.
Plastic bags
right.
up front. It says local option, and just for everyone, maybe at home as well, this just simply allows localities to regulate whether or not they're going to allow plastic bag use from stores and other.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. DeCall.
Thank you. My question is related to collection of town taxes by county. So for the people watching us and listening to us as well, would you mind just telling us a little pros and cons about letting county collect the taxes? What are the pros we have and what are the cons we may have by allowing them to?
And I may need some help from the town manager since our director of finance is at school tonight. But essentially, as you know, the county assesses our real estate taxes. And we have had in place for many years now are own collection methods. But it would be nice to be able to avail ourselves of the information that is available at the county level for the collection of taxes. They have offered to do this, so in terms of providing a more streamlined process, providing instead of having to pay essentially the county and the town, you would be paying one entity as a property owner in the town, although we would still get the benefit of the taxes that are town taxes. We would be availing ourselves, too, of collection tools that are available to the county that are not available to the town without great cost, which is, again, one of the ideal situations that an agreement with the county would create there. And as far as cost to the town, simply it takes quite a bit of staff to run these bills, collect these bills, and we would be working with the county, who already has employees dedicated to this process. So I don't see from our citizens' point of view that they would see any change, and it would be more cost effective. Is there anything else, Mr. Town Manager?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. It's more efficient for the customers, more efficient for the banks, it's more efficient for everybody concerned in terms of billing and remittance. But also this has been used by the towns in Loudoun to great effect over the past couple of years. That's where we copied this idea from. On the negative side, the only negative I've even heard came from one of my colleagues in another jurisdiction saying it seems to be one thing that you're giving up, that you're giving something back to the county to do that you lose identity with, and I'm not sure if that's even a valid criticism, but that's the only con that I was able to derive, because I asked the same questions. That's the only con I was able to derive on any of these conversations. But it has been used in Loudoun County successfully, and we just want to mirror that program.
As long as you maximize revenues by minimizing our costs, that's always good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Other questions for town staff? Anyone? So, my only question is, the current legislation that has been approved by the General Assembly specifically says that Loudoun County only is able to do this, and we are specifically asking just to add Fairfax County to that, correct?
Correct. And you may recall that we thought we were going to be able to do this last year. Correct. So we've lost 1 year. We really hope that that this will be able to be carried through this year, and we can bring you an MOU probably March timeframe if we know that it's passed. So
wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the council for staff? Okay, thank you. Then I will entertain a motion, move to council level for discussion and action.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I move to approve Resolution 19Z69.
All right, we have a motion to approve made by Mr. DeCall, seconded by Mr. DeLaguila. Discussion on the motion, anyone? No?
I think it's... Sure. I think it's pretty good. As I said, we can save our cost, and then we can still get the same revenue. So I think it's a good idea.
I'm all about partnership with the county.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Also, on top of the catus paribus assumptions that we would obviously be eliminating with if they were able to go through the county and reducing costs, we would also, the legislative agenda that we've looked at through the VML, the things that we've identified, I think, reflect upon the 2030 vision that we have and are indicative of the kind of town we want to be. So I hope that with things changing in Richmond, some of these things can in fact pass. So thank you.
Agreed. Yes, ma'am. Did you? No?
Yes, I was going to make the same comment that after the election, I think there are several things that we sent down last year that we should see successful this year.
Anything else? Ms. Friedrichs?
I just wanted to emphasize that a lot of the things that we're asking for return some of the oversight to the town that we all thought that it already had, as citizens. So I really like the fact that we'll be able to, maybe do something about plastic bags, and maybe The tax thing, of course, is much more efficient, but I'm more interested in, yes, we can do something about blight maybe. Maybe we can do something about, other stuff. So thank you very much to the staff. This is a good job, and look forward to seeing what the General Assembly does with it.
Certainly, I agree with my colleagues, and I really relate to what Signe just said, Ms. Friedrichs just said. Regarding the tax collection, we implemented a very similar policy with Fairfax County a few years back to collect the decal fee, so that residents are writing one check when they get their personal property tax, and then they remit that to the town. And I believe that we've found that not only is it more efficient for us, in some cases we're getting revenue that otherwise we weren't getting, because we just don't have the capacity to chase those smaller tasks down. So this will be, I think, a great benefit to all of us. And I agree with Mr. DeLaguila. Our partnership with the county is great. We know that not every town in Virginia feels that way about their county, but we have a great relationship with Fairfax County, and we intend to keep it that way. So if there's no further discussion, I will call the question on the motion, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? Thank you very much. That brings us to the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, I move approval.
So I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries, and that concludes our agenda this evening.
Madam Mayor, seeing no other business, I move we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, and we stand adjourned at 8:20 p.m. See you on December 2nd.